In these hot, humid August days in the Northeast, it's really easy to get dehydrated, especially if you're out and about exercising or gardening or just running around juggling all the things like the parent you are. But what I've learned is that being optimally hydrated involves more than just making sure you drink enough water or lemonade or iced tea. The science shows that it means optimizing your body's fluid ratios, including electrolytes. That's why these days I've been staying hydrated with Element. Element is a zero-sugar drink mix designed for better hydration, created with a science-backed electrolyte ratio of sodium, potassium, and magnesium. That strong dose of electrolytes matters because while electrolyte deficiency or imbalance can cause headaches, cramps, fatigue, brain fog, and weakness, optimal electrolyte levels can help do things like reduce muscle cramps, promote better sleep, and support better digestion. Since I've been taking Element, I've noticed a boost in my energy levels and also just feeling more generally on top of things when it comes to my ability to do focused, productive work. And I'm pretty psyched about that because I'm juggling perhaps a few too many things at the moment and I need all the help I can get. Element has a special free gift with purchase for our Tilt parenting community. Get your free Element sample pack with any purchase at drinkelement.com/tilt. That's drinklmnt.com/tilt. Also, try the new Element Sparkling, a bold 16-ounce can of sparkling electrolyte water.
I define capable throughout the book as an individual living a meaning-filled life determined by them and those who love them with the maximum level of autonomy and agency that they can authentically access. Now, I realize that's a mouthful, but I want to point out the important parts of that definition. That is a meaning-filled life with the maximum amount of agency that a person can authentically access.
I'm Debbie Reber, and welcome to Tilt Parenting, a podcast featuring interviews and conversations aimed at inspiring, informing, and supporting parents raising differently wired kids. So, what does the word capable mean to you? My guest, Dr. Deborah Winking, defines a capable person as an individual living a meaning-filled life determined by them and those who love them with the maximum level of autonomy and agency that they can achieve and authentically access. Deborah's on a mission to show that there's a version of capable for every child that is unique to them, and it's what she writes about in her new book, Raising Capable Kids, the 12 Habits Every Parent Needs Regardless of their child's label or challenge. Deborah, an educator, school leader, consultant, and researcher, has a PhD in educational psychology and is the mother of 4 children, including one child born with a rare neurological syndrome. She's worn many hats over the course of her career, including working with and advocating for countless children and families, teaching at the New England Center for Autism, where she started the first work experience and supported employment program there, and conducting a 5-year evaluation of the New York City Schools Early Childhood Inclusive Education Initiative. She currently works in a public school teaching bilingual disabled learners. In addition to the book we're talking about today, Deborah is also the author of a memoir called Capable, a story of triumph for children the world has judged as different. But for today's show, Deb shared the story of raising her son Jack and how focusing on the near future, or the next 15 yards, as she says, helped her stay grounded. We also explored the concept of capable through multiple examples, the role of agency, our vision as parents, and much more. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Hey, Deb, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Deb.
Of course. I'm looking forward to learning more about your work and sharing your books with my audience. But I know your work is very connected to your personal story, and your personal story is connected to your personal why. So I would love if you could just tell us a little bit about your story, what's beyond the bio.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best way to frame all this is start with my first book. My first book, Capable, was kind of like an honest and filled with vulnerability, readers said, funny, heart-wrenching and funny at the same time account of me raising my son, Jack, who was born with a rare neurological syndrome. So he was born with a syndrome that included universal hypotonia. So every one of the 600 muscles in his body were to some extent slack. It also includes learning disabilities, anxiety, and coexists often with other neurodevelopmental conditions like autism and ADHD. So that book was kind of a 7-year labor of love. I love stories. I really get immersed in stories, and I assumed other folks would too. So what I wanted to do was teach through story. It's funny, one of my favorite authors, Jason Mott, says the only way to tell the truth is through a good story. And that's what I hope to do with Capable. And so I wanted readers to be kind of traveling down 2 tracks while they listen to the story. One is rooting for Jack to kind of prevail against a system that was designed to sort and throw him into the bin labeled less than. And the other was to kind of hear my inner monologue of mistakes, missteps, and intentional decisions, and kind of think about what it would mean for their parenting life. To a large extent, it was really successful. And I had one reader say to me, and she loved the book. She said, you are a teacher of kids with disabilities, no less. You have a PhD. And from what I can read from the book, you appear to be annoyingly optimistic. What about the rest of us, right? And so that got me really thinking and got me needing to scratch an itch that I could not get over. I knew it wasn't me. I knew, and just like Debbie, that, parents with whatever kind of credentials make just as many, if not more mistakes than those who don't. And so I knew I wasn't some once in a generation child whisperer savant, that it could not be me. And that actually led to my hypothesis that regardless of diagnosis or label, parents who are raising their kid to be capable share some really important things. And that led to about 3.5 years of survey research and interview research that became the definitive set of mindsets and behaviors that parents share and that I talk about in the book. So that's my why for writing Raising Capable Kids. This new book was, hey, ain't nothing special about me, but there is something very special about parents who are raising their kids to be capable, and it's that set of habits.
I would love if you could tell us a little bit about your personal evolution in parenting Jack. Well, you said that others saw you as being annoyingly optimistic, which I kind of love. And I know that that wasn't your experience all the time. If you could share a little bit for listeners to have a sense of the lens through which you're kind of approaching this work. What did you grapple with or struggle with the most when Jack was younger? And where was your biggest area of learning?
Thanks for asking me that, because I, like all of us in the midst of the mess, many times I was completely overwhelmed and demoralized and felt like the world wasn't a fair place. There's a place in the book that if I could pull it, I'd read it now, that talked about all the messages Jack was getting from his environment. If I could paraphrase, he would try to answer a question, but he couldn't get his thought out quick enough. So others had already said the answer well before it. And then he said the same thing. Loss. Others would look at how he moved or got from place to place. Loss. Others would see how he was responding in class or not responding or looking or doing. He also had physical characteristics that were a hallmark of the syndrome. Each one of these was loss, loss, loss. And so one of the biggest things for me was how to hold on to 2 ideas sacred at the same time. That is, what is and what could be. And without doing that, I feel like we can't get our kids to capable. I didn't want to be parent in denial. I needed to say, hey, today it looks like this, but what could it look like? And that's one of the pieces I really try to get across in the book, is this notion, I pull it from my time Colorado skiing, is just focusing on the next 15 yards, not looking down that entire expanse of the mountaintop to the terra firma below, but just what's your next 15 yards in getting your child to capable. And that to me was critical to moving Jack to where he is today.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. And I love that next 15 yards. And as someone who tried to learn how to ski as an adult, I also really appreciate that. I want to talk about how you define capable, but let's take a quick break and then we'll do that. There seems to be so much change in the air these days. And of course, back to school is a biggie that most everyone is navigating. New school rhythms, new schedules for things like OT or tutoring or sports or enrichment activities. It can be hard to keep track of it all, especially when we're dealing with some executive function challenges. The mental load of parenting is real. But this school year, there is help. Enter Skylight Calendar. Skylight Calendar is a smart touchscreen calendar and organizer for all your chores, groceries, meals, and to-dos. It automatically syncs Google, Apple, and other digital calendars your family uses and shows them all together in one beautiful touchscreen display. Skylight Calendar is super easy to set up. Seriously, I did it in under 5 minutes. And in addition to syncing with everyone's calendars, you can also add events directly using the touchscreen or with the free Skylight mobile app. And yes, you can color code them, which truly makes my heart sing. Beyond the calendar, it's got those optional features like a chore chart complete with emoji celebrations when a task is checked off. There's the dinner planning, grocery list, to-do list, daily weather display, and weather forecast based on the address of your events. It's pretty much a lovely digital command central for the whole family. The bonus, when the calendar is not in use, you can turn it into a digital picture frame. As a special limited time offer for our listeners, get $40 off your purchase of a Skylight calendar when you go to skylightcal.com/tilt. That's SKYLIGHTCAL.com/tilt. These days, I'm embracing any and all systems and products that give me simple ways to support my family while reducing my personal stress. And that's exactly what HelloFresh is all about. With HelloFresh, I can skip trips to the grocery store and make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit. Side note, HelloFresh was the very first meal kit our family started using years ago. In fact, it was over HelloFresh dinners that I talked with Darren and Ash about my big plans for Tilt parenting way back when. And it was through HelloFresh that we really started adding food diversity and a love of cooking back into our lives. With the changing menu of 50 recipes to choose from each week, HelloFresh makes it easy to always find something that will hit the spot for everyone in the family. Their easy-to-follow recipes include pre-portioned ingredients delivered fresh, so no last-minute grocery store run required. Just choose your delivery date, open your box, and get cooking. And HelloFresh's line of kid-friendly family options means even the pickiest of eaters will be part of the Clean Plate Club this back-to-school season. And Green Chef, who is also a sponsor of this show, is now owned by HelloFresh. And with a wider array of meal plans to choose from, there's really something for everyone. I love switching between the brands, and now my listeners can enjoy both brands at a discount with me. And for a limited time, kids eat free. Go to HelloFresh.com/tiltkids to unlock this exclusive offer. 1 free kids meal per box for 2 months while your subscription is active. That's free kids meals just by going to HelloFresh.com/tiltkids. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Our family has just moved back to Amsterdam, the land of beautiful canals and weather that can turn on a dime. It's also a city where we're outside on foot or bike every single day, so what I'm wearing has to comfortably get me through whatever the day has in store. Even an out-of-the-blue downpour like the one Darren and I got caught in while shopping for a cat litter box, a fan, and a few other essentials for our new place. You guys already know that I'm a big fan of Vessi's waterproof shoes. Our whole family wears them, so I'm really jazzed about this new vintage-style shoe Vessi's just come out with. They're called Courtside Classics, and they're a 90s inspired shoe that look great with just about any outfit while also being super comfortable. Like my other Vessi's, the Courtside Classics are easy slip-ons with Vessi's signature snug, cozy fit because of the shoe's padded tongue and collar. I so appreciate what the Vessi brand is all about, encouraging people to enjoy the benefits of getting outside no matter the forecast. Whether it's going for a walk for a mental reset, standing on the sidelines of the world's soggiest soccer field, or getting the dog out for a spin around the neighborhood, Vessi's make sure we can enjoy it all while avoiding any of that dreaded wet socks experience. Step up your style with Vessi Courtside Classics, their latest waterproof sneakers reminiscent of the 90s. Head to Vessi.com/tilt for waterproof shoes that go with all your outfits and get an automatic 15% off your first order at checkout. That's VESSI.com/tilt to receive your 15% discount. So you've used this word capable a couple of times. Of course, that was the title of your memoir. And then this book is called Raising Capable Kids. But just so we're all on the same page, how would you define capable? What does that mean?
Yes, thank you. So capable, and I'm just going to read this to you. I define capable throughout the book as an individual living a meaning-filled life determined by them and those who love them with the maximum level of autonomy and agency that they can authentically access. Now, I realize that's a mouthful, but I want to point out the important parts of that definition. That is a meaning-filled life with the maximum amount of agency that a person can authentically access. I've been asked, hey, wait, is capable for everyone? What about kids who aren't capable? And to that, I say the short answer is capable is for everyone. And the neurodiverse community is an amazingly huge tent. As you know, they always say, if you met one person with autism, Down, CP, SOTOS, you've met exactly one person. So the fact is, our community is massively, massively large. But the fact is, what we define as capable is determined by two things. Did that person have agency and autonomy? And is what they're experiencing meaningful to them and those who love them? And so I give a lot of examples, really, hopefully vivid examples in the book. Capable for some can look like volunteering at the senior center. For others, it can look like creating their own YouTube channel. For some, it can look like getting a degree in an area that they're passionate about. And just as meaningfully for others, it can look like being able to be present and enjoy family gatherings, giving joy with their presence for being there. For some, it can look like employment. And for others, it can look like using their eye gaze to get their voice out into the world. I provide one example in the book of a boy I work with who expressed his agency by he decided, nobody did it for him, when to turn his head slightly to trigger a switch that ran a cold washcloth across his face. I guess what I want to say is that there is nobody who cannot reach capable as defined by offering meaning or creating meaning with the maximum level of agency that they can put in.
I really appreciate that definition. It brings to mind self-determination theory for me. And I really like that reframe that I think is happening kind of broadly in the neurodivergent space, moving away from this language of independence. When I think about this, I think about Jules Edwards and Megan Ashburn's book, I Will Die on This Hill. And they talk a lot about that none of us are independent as humans, right? Like we all rely on other people and systems and community. So I just really appreciate being able to have that self-determination, that agency, that autonomy, and then pairing it with something that's meaningful to them. It's a really nice lens through which to think about what we're actually doing here when we're supporting our kids.
And it's true. I mean, any of my kids, all 4 of my kids, if I break it down, I want them to live a meaningful life with agency and autonomy, whether they're self-describe themselves as neurotypical or neurodiverse.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what we all want, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. In the book, you shared 13 habits that parents can embrace to raising capable kids. You talked a little bit about this. You said you spent years researching and talking with people. I'd love to know a little bit more about your process for approaching this framework. Like, how did you hone in on these specific 13 things?
I was trained in qualitative and quantitative, but qualitative research through Bob Stake, who was the father of case study. And I think that the importance of the case and the importance of understanding deeply lived experience is a science in itself. So what I used was I interviewed, using the same protocol, a common protocol, parents that ran the gamut of raising a child where their concern was how anxiety affected their schoolwork, all the way to parents whose were dealing with a child who was losing skills every day because they had a degenerative disability that they were actually ultimately going to lose their child to that disability. So what I wanted to do was make sure that I captured a sample that reflected the range, what we might call disability or challenge. And then I also looked at cross socioeconomic status, race, all the factors that might contribute to, hey, how do we get a sample of parents that truly represent this broad community of folks who are neurodiverse? And then I used the same interview protocol for all those parents. And then, of course, the process was the typical research process of triangulating themes across all those interviews. And that resulted in the common set of habits. And then I was very concerned with the connection to neuroscience. So in the book, once I triangulated to a habit, I did just some research around the neuroscience behind kind of that mindset or behavior that, just put some teeth into it. Why? Why does that one matter? I know all readers don't care about the neuroscience. I'm particularly fascinated by why one thing or another might be more of a game changer than something else, and the neuroscience that plays into that. So that was the second piece of the research. The first was triangulating the habits and then connecting it to the neuroscience.
Yeah. And I think it's such an exciting time right now in neuroscience. And I was out for a walk with my editor of Differently Wired, which came out 6 years ago. And I was like, I already want to go in and edit that thing because there's so many things that I didn't mention that because they weren't even being talked about. Like, I don't think I mentioned polyvagal theory in my book. I think co-regulation, like there's so many things that we're really understanding on a deeper level. It's exciting to see.
I felt the same way. The notion of, I think it was called even just months ago, pathological avoidance.
A demand avoidance.
Demand
PDA.
avoidance.
Yeah.
Now they have come to realize that's not the right term. I had to go to my editor and say, no, this is not pathological demand avoidance. This is, I can't think of the name now.
A persistent desire for autonomy.
Autonomy, exactly. So changed it in the second book, Just Under the Wire. But because the fields of neuroscience, psychology, and education have all come together, I think our understanding is changing daily about what this should look like.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's exciting. It requires a lot of staying on top of things to keep up with the changes.
Or people to have grace with us when we are behind.
Yes, that is true. Very true. I want to go through a couple of the habits that you mentioned in your book, but let's take a quick break and then we'll do that. August is the month when parents of differently wired kids tend to focus on all things education, considering out-of-the-box options that may never have been part of our original plan. Because we want to do right by our kids and find educational approaches that support their individual learning styles. That's why I encourage you to check out K-12 Powered Schools. K-12 Powered Schools can help your child start reaching their full potential in life now with online education options tailored to their unique needs, interests, and schedules. And there's still time to get started this year. K-12 Powered Schools state-certified teachers are trained online educators. They utilize hands-on, innovative technology to make learning interactive and help students gain skills, experience, and certifications, all before graduating high school, all while giving you the support you need to get them there. There's even an online portal that gives parents insights into their child's curriculum and performance. K-12 has online education options for every type of learner, and it could be the right fit for your child too. And they even offer social opportunities, extracurricular activities, and in-person events. Help your child gain the skills they need to thrive in the future with K-12. There's still time to get started for the fall. Go to k12.com/tilt today to learn more and find a tuition-free K-12 powered school near you. That's the letter K, the number 12.com/tilt. k12.com/tilt. I cannot believe that it's August already and back to school is here or on deck for most of us. That means new rhythms and routines, whether figuring out how to get out the door in the morning or having a plan for what happens between the end of the school day and dinner and beyond. Fat Brain Toys is here to help with at least one aspect of that new schedule. With their fidget and sensory toys that help busy brains unwind at the end of a long day, Fat Brain Toys offers a variety of child-driven play experiences that will keep both their mind and their body active. Almost all of the toys and games are screen-free, but what I appreciate most about Fat Brain Toys is that they encourage kids to get creative and explore the world around them through open-ended play. And if you have a young builder, architect, sculptor, maker living under your roof, you'll want to check out the Plip Kit. It comes with over 45 flexible pieces kids can use to create complex prisms, swirling patterns, really anything that they want. And the special Plip Connect system is designed with easy ball and socket ends that make this flexible construction kit an especially satisfying experience for kids who may be working on their fine and gross motor skills. Fat Brain Toys is a family-run business that has been curating and creating quality toys, games, and gifts that both entertain and educate for more than 20 years. Fat Brain has put together a collection of toys for our families. Go to fatbraintoys.com/tilt to get 10% off all the items in the Tilt collection when you use the code TILT at checkout. And find out for yourself why Fat Brain Toys is a smarter way to play.
Interrompemos esse podcast para perguntar: quem você quer ser?
Designer, engenheira, pedagoga,
administrador.
Quer saber? O Senac EAD é nota máxima no MEC. Tem cursos de diversas áreas, com conteúdo elaborado por especialistas do mercado e professores mestres e doutores. Ainda tem o Senac Carreiras, conectando estudantes a vagas de emprego em todo o país. Saiba mais em ead.senac.br/graduação.
Okay, so we don't have time to go through all 12 of the habits. And listeners, I mentioned 13 habits earlier. There are 12 habits. My table of contents was incorrect. But I wanted to know a little bit more about habit 3, which is set a vision of capable with your child and helping them adjust it as necessary. So I would love to know a little bit more about that. I really liked the idea behind that. So could you walk us through that?
I'm glad that language worked for you, Debbie, because some people hate it, but then I tell them why. When I say vision, I don't mean some kind of a crystal ball gazing epiphany. When I say vision, I mean a shared belief about your child's future, which is informed and shaped by their interests, their motivations, their passions, as well as your hopes for them. It was really interesting. My research and my own experience bore out that parents who were truly raising their child to be capable actually did have some kind of idea, notion, kernel, vision of capable, even when they thought they did not. And a few parents more than a few, were very fond of saying, oh no, they didn't have any predetermined notion or vision for their child. They just follow wherever their child takes them. And my research showed that that's actually not true, that parents did have ideas for what they wanted for their child, even if they didn't like to say that they did. And I think it's really important to know that giving our child autonomy and voice doesn't mean we advocate our role of being the parent who loves them, this experienced being who's been in the world longer. Matter of fact, if I let my neurotypical, whatever that means, 14-year-old, if I followed her notions of what she wanted to do, her notions of capable at 15, 16, it would be doom scrolling the social media all night and maybe throwing in a little time at the end for studying. We know some things. We have some experience that our kids don't. So we have to be really careful because currently in the disability community, we're very fond of saying, and I 100% agree with it, I write a lot about it in the book, of saying nothing for me without me. In other words, the notion, particularly in the autistic community, of, hey, don't do anything for me unless it comes from me. That is all true, but that does not mean we abdicate our responsibility as parents. We do have ideas, notions, and know things that our kids don't, just by virtue of experience. If I can give one example, I worked with a couple who really said they had a vision of their child navigating their tight-knit community on a bicycle. And at the time, their kid wanted to have nothing to do with a bicycle. It challenged their balance. It was a sensory thing. And this kid, now adult, loved hopping in his parents' car. He could get everywhere he wanted. He loved getting into his sister's beater and listening to the radio. So he really saw no need to get on a bike. But his parents kept that vision alive because they knew that they weren't always going to be around. And because of some cognitive challenges their son had, they did not think he was a candidate for driving. So they started with bikes with no pedals, everything with wheels, tandem, everything. And kind of over time and with support and drawing from another habit, which is challenging your child with support, got to the place where their son was navigating their community on the bicycle. Looking back, this boy as an adult says that, you know what, if it weren't for his parents, he would probably be sitting at home doing nothing. So that's just a reminder to us of parents that allowing our kids to have agency and making sure our heads are right about that doesn't mean that we don't matter and what we see for our child doesn't matter and that we shouldn't have a vision for how we see them as capable.
And how do we talk with our kids about their capability, or the word potential just popped into my head, which I think potential is a tricky word for a lot of us because we also don't want to pressure our kids. So we want to be like exuding this idea that we see you as a capable human, right? And be holding that line while also kind of honoring their experience. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I'd love to know your thoughts on navigating that.
It's very tricky. And I say in the book that the messages that we send to our child sown over a lifetime create the difference between our child seeing themselves as capable or disabled. The messages we send matter. My particular, and I give a lot of anecdotals in the book about why this is important, is that even if we don't see our kid as there quite yet, even if they're not there yet, and that's the power of yet. And we've all read the science around that. It's better for us to act as if we believe our child is capable than not, because in the long run, they'll end up in a better place if we are encouraging or sending the message, no, I think you can do this. I really believe in you. Then I don't know the way your makeup is. I just don't think you can work out in the hot sun. Or I don't think you should challenge yourself by going into that group of kids in the after school program because, they're just a little rough. We're better off saying our kids can than they can't because it sends the message to our kid that, hey, the person who cares about me most in the world believes I can. Now, we can adjust that over time, and we talk about that a lot in the book, but you're better off with an attitude towards, I think you got this.
Yeah. And actually, I just want to point out to listeners that one of the habits, it's habit 6, is to use words and act in ways that send your child the message that you think they're capable. I'm wondering if there are some phrases or some ways of communicating that you think can be really effective in sending the message. I'm going to give you an example of something I do a lot is I use the phrase, I notice a lot, right? I'm noticing this as a way to just kind of point things out, but not going overboard with praise or just drawing attention to things. So any other ideas in terms of how we can be subtly always giving our kids the message that we see them as capable?
No, the language of noticing is very powerful because it kind of brings your kid along. Maybe they're not even aware. Hey, I noticed when you sit in the beanbag chair, you can really focus on your math better. That language of noticing is really important. I also use wondering. Hey, I'm wondering if you can do that. It feels like you can. And that is particularly good for older kids who don't want to be told anything. I'm wondering is actually great language. I talk in the book a little bit about not only words, but also signs and signals. Each of the habits is introduced by another story, not mine, but a story of another family that illustrates a habit. And there's one in particular where a mom is trying to challenge her child with support, and they have developed a signal. And the signal is, I need a break now, but we're going to come back to this. So even that kind of a thing, a shared signal that says, hey, I know you got this, but I know we're spent and overwhelmed now. We're going to come back to this. So the assumption is, I ain't giving up on this, and I ain't giving up on you, but we're going to come back to that. And that shared signal makes the child feel safe. I'm not going to be pushed beyond what I can imagine, but she believes in me so much that she hasn't put this away and said, he can't do that. And that, I guess I just want to say parenthetically, that's also what I do with my students now. My students in my bilingual special needs class is they know Miss Deb ain't giving up on them. They are not getting out of it, but we may be taking a break. And that is very powerful for kids because the message it sends is, oh, wow, I am so good. I am so important. Nobody's taking the easy way and just letting me out of this. We're going to get back to that.
Yeah, no, I like that. And it might seem subtle, but it's actually really powerful because there's intention behind that. In some ways, you're talking about this idea that I write about in Differently Wired of just being fluent, right? Like fluent in our kids and like understanding where they are, scaffolding to that, but knowing that there are so many things. And you talk about this. There are messages we send our kids with what we say and also just what we do. So there are so many kind of hidden messages in the things that we're not saying or the actions that we're taking that our kids are picking up on.
Yeah, I want to just take a note from that is so important. Most people say, oh no, I tell my kid all the time that they've got this. I tell them all the time that I believe in them, but we're not so intentional or introspective about what we don't say. And I use a number of examples in the book, but one of them, my own, because I'm as fallible as all of us, is my son with the syndrome is a twin. And there was a time in 7th grade where they were tasked with something called a passion project, something they loved. At that time, my son was so overwhelmed and negative and avoidant of schoolwork that in an effort not to tax him more, guess what I did all day long? I talked with his twin sister about her passion project, which was starting a middle school girls soccer team. I talked to her about how she was going to do it, what she was going to do, what she was going to write. Guess what I didn't do? I never talked with Jack about what might be his passion project. Message received. Oh, my sister is so worthwhile and capable. Mom's talking to her about the passion project, but Mom's not saying anything to me. That must mean that I'm not worthy of being part of the passion project. So while the intention was great, I didn't want to stress out my kid. The message was negative. So just to underscore the idea, it's not only what we say and do, but it's what we don't say and what we don't do well.
I appreciate that example. And actually, that kind of leads us to the last habit before we wrap up. I'd love if you could talk a little bit more about that. It's to treat yourself with compassion, make mistakes, laugh, and learn from them. And you're very open and honest about the fact that you've got all these credentials and you're this experienced person working with kids who have developmental disabilities, and you have so much. And you're also a parent, like navigating this for the first time. So can you talk a little bit about that last habit and what you think is so important for readers to take away from it?
Oh, wow. I am really insecure talking about that habit with you, Debbie, because I think you are kind of my guru and go-to in that area. But I realized the reason I put that habit last, but think that people should, I put in the introduction, go to 12 first and then go back to 1. Because if we don't get that one right, we can't meet our child where we are for any of the other ones. And so that's that notion of understanding that while what we do is so important and impactful and matters, it makes a world of difference. Also, we need to not take ourselves so seriously. I had a parent come to me at the last thing, something I was doing with the book, and they said, oh, I loved your presentation. And I loved all the kernels and everything, but it kind of made me feel bad. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. They had a son who was 33. And what I 100% do not intend to do is the habits should empower folks to say the areas where they are working, all right, that's affirming. And the areas where maybe they've been a little latent in, hey, this could supercharge my efforts. But the intent is not to have folks feel bad about the habits, because in fact, the best way, the only way we can meet our child where they are is to have self-compassion. And also our kids pick that up instantly in us. If they see us being compassionate with ourselves, then they learn how to be compassionate with themselves. And they realize that, hey, mom made a mistake and the world didn't explode and vaporize. And so when I make a mistake, the same thing won't happen. The world won't explode and vaporize. So I give about 7 or 8 examples in there in the book, strategies about letting go of shoulds. So often we think parenting should be a certain way. Oh, I should be able to just relax and lean back at night while my kid does his homework independently at the table. I should be able to come to a school event and just take pictures in the background as my kid scurries around happily with their friends. There's all these ideas that germinated within us from our own lives, from our parents, from what we've learned from the generations before us of what parenting should be like. And until we let go of our shoulds and develop our own ideas of what meaningful, joyful parenting looks like, we're always going to have this remorse, feel bad, not able to enjoy our time together. So letting go of shoulds is just one example in that habit of having self-compassion that is habit 12. But I think the most important thing about that one is, and you've been a leader in putting this out, unless we're good to ourselves, we can't be good to our kids. And so I provide some concrete examples about the things we need to adopt to get to that place of self-compassion.
Thanks for that. And I just want to remind listeners that Deb's new book it's Deborah Winking. We're going by Deb because we're casual here, but it's called Raising Capable Kids, the 12 Habits Every Parent Needs Regardless of Their Child's Label or Challenge. So can you let listeners know where they can connect with you and learn more about your work?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. On Facebook and Instagram, it's under Capable the Book. My website is the same thing, Capable the Book. You can find more about what I do at my website or at JKP. That's Jessica Kingsley Publishing's website. But yeah, that's pretty much where you'd see me.
Awesome. And listeners, as always, I will have links in the show notes page. So definitely check that out for all the ways to connect with Deborah. And I always go through after we do an interview and I take notes on any names and references that came up. I'll include those in the show notes as well. So Deborah, thank you so much. Congratulations on the new book. And I really appreciate having this conversation with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Debbie.
You've been listening to the Tilt Parenting Podcast. To learn more about today's guest and the resources we talked about, check out the extensive show notes page on Tilt Parenting. There you'll find key takeaways, links to all the resources mentioned, and even a full transcript of our conversation. Just go to tiltparenting.com/podcast and select this episode. If you're looking for personal support from me and connection with the phenomenal community of parents raising neurodivergent kids, join us in the recently rebooted Differently Wired Club. The new Differently Wired Club can help you cultivate the positive shifts you're hoping for. Go to tiltparenting.com/club to learn more. The Tilt Parenting Podcast is hosted by me, Debbie Reber, author of Differently Wired and the founder of Tilt Parenting, and was edited by Andrea Curtis Amasquita. To support this show, please join my Patreon campaign where you can set up a small monthly contribution. Just go to patreon.com/tiltparenting to learn more. If you want to follow Tilt on social media, you can find us at @tiltparenting on Instagram and Facebook. And lastly, please take a minute to leave a 5-star rating or review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. That helps this show stay visible so others can find it more easily. And that's all for this week. Stay safe, stay well, and take good care. And for more information about any of the parenting resources Tilt offers, visit tiltparenting.com.
Feel like you're the martyr in your family? You're not alone. Hey, this is Joanne.
And Bree.
And we're from the No Guilt Mom podcast. Bree, we talk to a lot of moms.
Yeah, we sure do.
And if you're a mom who has a to-do list that is so massive that you get overwhelmed and you shut down,
or if you fall into the habit of doing everything for everyone and don't know how to change it, we can help you become a no-guilt mom.
we're going to take you from family martyr to family model. That's role model, so that you role model the behavior that you want to see out of your kids.
You're going to go from being tired and overwhelmed to energized and guilt-free. free.
Every week, you'll get actionable strategies that you can implement right away from the experts that we interview and from us.
We also have a whole lot of fun, so check out the No Guilt Mom podcast everywhere you listen to your favorite shows.